You've done it all: daily affirmations, hours of meditation, avoiding negative thoughts like they're poison. You've followed every tip, every guru, every spiritual hack that promised to lift your vibration and keep it there. But somehow you still crash, still feel low, still wonder if something is wrong with you. You start to fake it. Smile when you don't want to, say you're grateful when you actually feel numb. Pretend to feel aligned while quietly drowning in the pressure to stay light. And no one talks about it. But Thoth did. He once said, "Your true vibration doesn't come from trying harder, it comes from being real." And maybe that's where we begin, not by forcing another practice, not by climbing another ladder of self-improvement, but by returning to what's honest, steady, already pulsing underneath the noise. This isn't a quest for more techniques. It's a remembering of your original frequency, the one that never needed pretending in the first place. There was a time you believed that being spiritual meant being positive all the time. That if your energy dropped, something was wrong. That if you felt sadness, anger, or fear, it meant you weren't enlightened enough, evolved enough, good enough. And so you tried harder. You meditated more, you smiled more, you repeated affirmations even when they didn't feel true. You learned how to perform peace, but somewhere along the way, you forgot how to actually feel it. This quiet pressure turned into something even heavier: guilt. Not just any guilt, but a subtle kind that wrapped itself around your spirit. The kind that whispered, if you're feeling this low, you're doing something wrong. You didn't even know what to call it, but it was always there, pressing in every time your mood shifted, every time your vibration felt off. This is what many now recognize as spiritual guilt, the silent, hidden consequence of trying to live up to an impossible ideal. The irony: the more you tried to appear light, the more disconnected you felt inside. You weren't failing. You were just following a distorted belief that high vibration meant perfection, that wholeness meant always being in control, that spiritual growth meant never being human again. But Thoth didn't teach denial. He didn't say you had to pretend. He didn't ask you to erase your shadow. What he pointed to was presence. He spoke of integration, not performance. Your emotions are not mistakes. They are messengers. And the moment you stop trying to silence them, something begins to shift. Imagine this: instead of tightening up when you feel low, you soften. You let the feeling pass through like a wave. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start whispering, "What is this moment trying to teach me?" In that instant, your vibration doesn't drop, it stabilizes. Not because you forced it into place, but because you stopped resisting what is. This is where the guilt begins to dissolve. You realize the goal isn't to never fluctuate, it's to stop judging yourself when you do. Your energy field doesn't thrive on forced positivity. It expands through honesty, through coherence, through the quiet courage to let yourself be real. So if you've been swinging between highs and lows, wondering why nothing sticks, know this: your frequency isn't broken. It's just tired of the mask. And maybe, just maybe, all it needs is your permission to show up exactly as it is. That's not failure. That's the beginning of vibrational truth. For a long time, you may have believed that being high vibe meant avoiding the shadow, that the path to peace was paved in constant light, that if you stayed away from what was uncomfortable, if you kept only positive emotions in your field, you'd finally reach stability. But the truth, the deeper truth, is far more liberating. Thoth never taught you to run from your darkness. He didn't preach perfection or the illusion of constant harmony. He pointed to something far more radical: integration. Because real vibration isn't about the absence of chaos. It's not about silencing what feels inconvenient or masking what makes you human. It's about presence, a quiet, steady kind of courage that says, I can be here even with this. True vibration is not a still pond that rejects every ripple. It's a river that knows how to carry stones. It flows not because it is empty, but because it knows how to move, how to include, how to contain, how to keep going without collapsing. You don't stabilize your energy by controlling everything. You stabilize it by expanding your capacity to hold what rises. When sadness shows up, you breathe with it. When anger knocks, you don't slam the door, you meet it at the threshold. You learn to feel fully without becoming what you feel. You witness without identifying. You allow without being swallowed. And in that space between feeling and fusing, something powerful happens. You begin to realize that the emotions you once feared are not enemies, they're instruments in your orchestra. Your fear, your grief, your doubt, they don't lower your vibration. They just ask to be included in the music. When you integrate your shadow, you don't become darker. You become more whole. This is where lasting vibration is born, not in the curated image of peace, but in the rooted, embodied experience of presence. Not in trying to be more light, but in holding your light while the storm rages. You stop pushing things away and you stop getting pulled under. You just stay. You remain with yourself fully. And from there, your energy begins to organize not around fear, not around perfection, but around truth. That's how vibration becomes permanent. Not by pretending, but by allowing all of you to vibrate without shame, without exile. This isn't stillness that breaks with the first gust of wind. It's a deeper kind of stillness, the kind that holds, that includes, that stays grounded because it no longer needs to run. And in that quiet integration, you start to feel it. The pulse of something stable. The peace that doesn't come from having no shadows, but from no longer being afraid of them. There's something that scrambles your vibration far more than sadness or fear. It's not what most people think. It's not your emotions, your circumstances, or even your environment. It's your thoughts. Not just the content of your thoughts, but their rhythm, their relentlessness. That constant mental noise that hums beneath the surface, even when everything outside seems quiet. You wake up and your mind is already racing. You're brushing your teeth and replaying yesterday's awkward conversation. You're making breakfast and planning 3 weeks ahead. You're trying to rest, but your brain won't sit still. This is the invisible tension almost everyone lives with, an overstimulated mind firing in every direction without pause. And every one of those thoughts carries its own frequency, its own tiny ripple in the field. The result? A vibrational soup, unfocused, unstable, and easily thrown off by even the smallest disruption. Your field, instead of being calm and coherent, becomes jagged, scattered, full of static. And you don't even realize it because this mental hyperactivity feels so normal, so familiar. But here's the shift. When you start to observe those thoughts without reacting to them, everything begins to change. You realize the mind isn't the enemy, it's just a tool, one that was never meant to run the show. Thoth understood this long before modern neuroscience. He saw thought as the first portal of vibration. If your thoughts are fragmented, the entire structure of your energy becomes vulnerable. You could be doing all the right spiritual things on the outside, meditating, journaling, visualizing, but if your mental foundation is cracked, the frequency won't hold. So what do? You start watching. You begin noticing the patterns, the impulses, the stories. Not to fight them, not to silence them, but simply to stop being ruled by them. You witness a thought the same way you'd watch a cloud move across the sky. You let it pass. No judgment, no resistance, just space. And in that small space, something profound begins to happen. The static starts to fade. The field begins to reorganize. Your energy starts to pulse again, not in chaos, but in quiet clarity. You don't need to empty your mind or reach some mystical state of silence. You just need to reclaim the gap between you and the thought. That's where freedom lives. Not in controlling every idea that appears, but in choosing which ones deserve your energy. And over time, your field learns this rhythm. It begins to recognize coherence. It starts vibrating not from reaction, but from intention, from alignment. This is the kind of clarity that no mantra can fake. The kind of stillness that comes not from trying to be peaceful, but from remembering you were never your thoughts in the first place. And from there, your vibration doesn't just rise, it steadies. Not because life is quiet, but because you are. There's a quiet pressure that lives in the modern spiritual world. It tells you to smile when you want to cry, to be grateful when you feel resentful, to forgive when your heart isn't ready, to vibrate high no matter what's breaking inside. It's subtle, sometimes it even feels noble. But underneath that pressure is something else entirely: disconnection. Because emotions aren't meant to be managed like checklists. They're not mistakes to be fixed or stains to be scrubbed out. They are messengers. They are truth. They are alive. And when you force yourself to override what's real just to maintain an image of spiritual maturity, your vibration doesn't rise. It fractures. You can meditate for hours, post affirmations every morning, speak like a guru. But if you're skipping over what's truly moving inside of you, anger, grief, longing, fear, then all of it is just performance. Your frequency knows the difference. Thoth didn't teach you to avoid what's uncomfortable. He didn't say, pretend to be at peace. He showed a path that honored raw honesty. A path where emotions aren't obstacles but doorways. Not things to transcend, but energies to meet with presence. Because here's the secret: your frequency doesn't suffer when you feel fear. It suffers when you hide from it. What creates true vibrational stability isn't constant joy, it's emotional integrity. The willingness to be real. To say, this is what I'm feeling right now, without shame, without editing. It's in those moments when you stop pretending that your energy actually begins to align. You stop leaking energy trying to hold up the mask. You stop creating inner tension by denying what's real. And you start vibrating from a place of coherence, from truth. Yes, it's vulnerable. Yes, it's raw, but it's also powerful. When you meet your sadness with openness, when you hold your anxiety with compassion, when you let yourself feel without turning away, you begin to anchor into something far deeper than forced positivity. You anchor into presence. And presence is the only place where your true vibration lives. This doesn't mean staying stuck in pain. It means creating enough inner space for your emotions to breathe so they can move, evolve, release on their own. So they don't get trapped in your field, distorting your energy behind a false smile. The next time you feel like you're failing spiritually because you're not high vibe, remember this: you're not here to be perfect. You're here to be whole. And wholeness includes every note of your emotional spectrum. When you can hold your truth without judgment, without rushing to change it, that's when something sacred shifts in your vibration. Not because you've gotten rid of the fear, but because you've finally stopped running from it. And in that stillness, in that honesty, a new frequency emerges, one that doesn't need to prove, perform, or protect. It just is. And that's where real alignment begins. You've been told that raising your vibration takes work rituals, hours of meditation, perfect routines. That staying high vibe is a full-time job. But what if the truth is simpler? What if stability doesn't come from more doing, but from finally being? Not somewhere else, not someday in the future, not once you've fixed everything inside, but here, now. Presence is the overlooked doorway to the vibration you've been chasing. Because your true energy doesn't live in the future, it doesn't wait for your next breakthrough or your next spiritual milestone. And it doesn't live in the past, trapped in stories, regrets, or echoes of what should have been. It only lives where life actually happens, in this breath, this moment, this heartbeat. The now isn't a poetic concept. It's a vibrational reality. When you are fully present, your energy field reorganizes instantly. The noise fades, the pressure drops, and what's left is clarity, raw, quiet, undeniable. It doesn't require you to stop thinking. It doesn't demand perfect stillness. It just asks for attention, gentle attention. The kind that notices the breeze on your skin, the weight of your body, the sound in the room, the inhale that fills you. It's the kind of attention that doesn't chase anything or fix anything. It simply lets you exist as you are. This is where your frequency stabilizes, not in effort, but in intimacy with the moment. Even a few seconds of true presence can shift your vibration more than hours of performance. And here's what Thoth hinted at long ago: presence is magnetic. It doesn't shout, it doesn't impress, but it carries a coherence so deep, everything around it responds. You've felt it before, those rare moments when time seemed to dissolve, when you were completely in your body, your senses, your breath. Nothing needed to change, and somehow everything felt aligned. That wasn't a fluke. It was a glimpse of your real energetic home. You don't need to strive to get there. You just need to stop leaving. So don't underestimate the power of returning to your breath, your body, your awareness. Don't overlook the quiet, the mundane, the stillness, because your highest vibration doesn't rise from noise. It rises from presence. And presence, my friend, is always available, right here, right now. We live in a culture obsessed with behavior. What you say, how you act, how you look when you're trying to appear spiritually advanced. But energy doesn't respond to performance. It responds to consistency. And consistency isn't about doing the same thing every day. It's about feeling the same way on the inside, even when everything outside shifts. This is what Thoth hinted at when he spoke of vibrational permanence, not as a rigid state you lock yourself into, but as an emotional current that becomes your identity. Because when your emotions are reactive, bouncing off circumstances, shifting with every opinion, you become like a loose wire, sparking, draining, unstable. But when you learn to choose a feeling and stay with it, not because life is perfect, but because you've aligned with it on purpose, that's when your frequency becomes undeniable. I choose peace. It's not just a mantra, it's a magnetic field. I choose clarity. That's not spiritual fluff, it's neurological alignment. When your thoughts, emotions, words, and actions begin to mirror each other, something rare happens. Your field stabilizes. It stops contradicting itself. It starts sending one clear message to the universe. This is who I am now, not who I'm trying to be, not who I pretend to be when others are watching, but who I've trained myself to feel over and over again until it became real. This is emotional coherence, not perfection, not forced joy, but the deep, grounded rhythm of authenticity, the kind that doesn't shatter when your day goes wrong, the kind that knows how to breathe through chaos and return not because it has to, but because it knows it can. You've spent so long reacting. Maybe it's time to begin remembering. Remembering what it feels like to be steady, to be sure, to live in a vibration that's not about control, but about choice. This is the moment when your frequency starts to lock in, not because your life is suddenly free of chaos. There's a moment rare, unmistakable, when everything inside you aligns. Your thoughts no longer argue with your feelings. Your words echo what your heart knows. Your choices reflect your deepest values, not your fleeting moods. And in that moment, something ancient awakens. A coherence so clear, it doesn't just shift how you feel, it begins to alter how reality meets you. This is not about trying harder. This is about tuning in. Thoth didn't speak in formulas. He spoke in frequencies, in harmonics, in the truth that the universe doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you are. You could recite affirmations all day, but if your emotions don't agree, if your actions contradict your intentions, your field is sending mixed signals. It's like a symphony with each instrument out of tune. But when your thought, your emotion, your body, and your energy pulse in the same rhythm, that's when coherence becomes power. Not loud, not showy, but undeniable. You walk into a room and people feel it. They don't know why, they just know something in you is whole, resonant, clear. This is harmonic resonance, the quiet magnetic signature of someone who is no longer split within. No more negotiating your truth to keep the peace. No more acting spiritual while silently judging yourself. No more leaking energy because your actions don't match your knowing. When you integrate every layer of your being, when you move as one, your vibration becomes sovereign. It stops reacting and starts shaping. Not by will, but by design. And here's the deepest secret Thoth left behind. You don't need to shout your truth for the universe to hear it. You only need to embody it. Because the field doesn't respond to noise. It responds to resonance. And when that resonance becomes stable, when it rings true from cell to soul, nothing outside you can shake it. Not chaos, not fear, not even the doubts that once defined you. You become the instrument and the frequency. You become the message and the medium. You become the tuning fork that reminds the world. Stability isn't born from control, it's born from coherence. And when your entire being vibrates in unity, your presence becomes the prayer. No words required. At some point, you stop chasing. You stop rehearsing how to feel good, how to speak light, how to appear elevated. Not because you've given up, but because you finally remember you were never supposed to become something else. You were meant to be. High vibration isn't a technique you master. It's a home you return to. A resonance that was always there underneath the conditioning, the performance, the effort to stay aligned. All that trying was a beautiful step, but it was never the destination. Because your essence doesn't need to be fixed, it needs to be uncovered. You don't raise your vibration by stacking more techniques. You raise it by peeling away what's false. The guilt, the forced gratitude, the polished positivity, the version of yourself designed to earn spiritual approval. You let it fall away. And what's left quiet, unshakable, unmistakable is you. Not the you shaped by survival or praise, but the you that remembers how to listen, how to feel, how to rest. This is the great paradox. The more you try to control your frequency, the more fragile it becomes. But the moment you stop performing and start being, your field begins to stabilize on its own. Not because you've finally gotten it right, but because you're no longer fighting yourself. And in that self-acceptance, in that gentle return to presence, the vibration you were trying to achieve simply emerges. Like a song that plays once the noise dies down. You realize then, vibration was never a goal. It was your signature. Your echo, the natural rhythm of a soul no longer negotiating its place. And when you live from that place, nothing outside needs to be perfect. The chaos can swirl, the world can shift, but your inner field becomes sovereign. Not managed, not polished, just whole. And that's what Thoth meant all along. Not a secret technique, but a sacred remembering. You don't need to be more, you just need to be true. And in that truth, your frequency doesn't rise, it returns. This isn't a new technique. It's an old memory, one your soul never really forgot. The memory of what it feels like to be fully here, to be present without performance, to feel without fear, to exist without adjusting who you are to match what others expect. When you live in honesty, not just in words, but in vibration, your field stops bending to every gust of chaos around you. It begins to hold, and you begin to remember that you were never meant to fake light. You are light, not because you're always smiling, always grateful, always calm, but because you're real. You feel it all, and still you stay. That is your power, not perfection. Not force, just presence. I choose to sustain my vibration, not through effort, but through being. Let this be the moment you return not to an ideal, but to yourself. Let this be the last time you ever feel the need to pretend. You're already home.